The opposing vertical pitch. In this video, we'll cover the opposing vertical pitch from the number 6 opposing solo perspective. A crowd favorite, this dynamic, graceful maneuver emphasizes the power and vertical maneuverability of the FA-18C Hornet. It is essentially opposing zoom climbs that transition into split-S maneuvers, but the visual from the crowd's perspective is breathtaking. The challenge for the opposing solo comes in coordinating with the lead solo pilot and matching him as closely as possible, and, when it's right, it's the maneuver where the solos truly own the show. Briefing. The maneuver begins with a standard abeam setup, which we've covered in previous videos, so if you are unfamiliar with the basic profile, I'd encourage you to watch our knife edge tutorial, which will teach you the details. At 1 nautical mile from center point, number 5 calls for smoke on, and both pilots select stage 1 afterburner. At center point, they will each pull aggressively into a 60-degree of vertical climb. And on number 5's call, both pilots roll their aircraft inverted and pull through the horizon and back towards center point with throttles in the idle position. Leveling out at about 150 feet AGL, both aircraft cross center point nose to nose before executing simultaneous 360-degree rolls and clearing behind the crowd. There are lots of little details to remember with this one, and making it look good means learning the maneuver, flying the numbers, and adjusting to how your lead solo pilot flies it. Let's get to work. Walkthrough. And welcome back once again to the cockpit of the F-18C Hornet in DCS world, where we're walking through today the opposing vertical pitch maneuver. And as with all opposing maneuvers in the Blues Airshow, this one begins with a standard 4-mile abeam setup. So I'm not going to talk through the details of that in this video. So standard abeam setup, and we are looking for a contract altitude in this maneuver of 150 feet, because we like to be a little lower because we're coming in fast and we're pulling into the vertical after that. And because of the parallax, which we've also discussed in previous videos, my altitude is going to be just slightly higher than that in order to make the hit look good. So I'm looking for 180 feet. So we're doing our standard abeam setup. Coming in for 4 miles mark, turning in. Let me know when you're abeam. Sighting over our shoulder for the airfield. We are abeam. We know you can take your mark. Go ahead and take it, and we're turning in for center point. Bring in center point into our HUD. We're looking for 400 knots and 4 miles mark 408. A little fast coming in, and at this point, number 5 will call. Number 5 call signs in for the left vertical pitch, and then we'll respond our call signs in for the left vertical pitch. Left because we are setting up left of center line so that we don't run into one another. So you can see here, I'm setting up to the left of the center point. All right, other than that, looks like a pretty good profile. We're already working it down to 400 knots, and we're looking for that 180 feet. And usually after we call the maneuver itself, number 5 will also call the contract altitude because it's different than most of the other opposed maneuvers, which is 200 feet. And so he'll say 150 feet, and then we'll respond 150, or just our call sign, LEB. All right. Coming in, looking good. 3 miles mark 399, still looking good. Working it down, looking for that 180 feet. Coming in for 2 miles, early, 2 miles mark 400. And 270. So we're doing it pretty well. We're descending pretty rapidly, so you'll see me pull the nose to the horizon just after this so we can establish that 180 feet. And at this point, we're getting set for the maneuver. Now, the maneuver profile works like this. We'll get on our contract altitude. He's 150, I'm at 180. On center line, flying 400. And then at about 1 mile from center point, right as we're crossing the apron of the runway here at Kobuleti, number 5 will call for afterburners. And that means not full burners. We're not going all the way to the stops. It's not gates. We're going to just first stage, so just over the stop. And that's so that we have a little extra airspeed and juice because we're going to be going into the vertical. We're going to pull 60 degrees nose high after that. So the sequence goes burners, and we go into first stage, hold attitude, and heading. And then as soon as we cross center point, number 5 will call the hit. Ready, hit it. And then we're pulling hard into the vertical. And like with a lot of other maneuvers where we're pulling hard into vertical, in this case, it's 90-degree onset and then all the way to the stop slightly after that so that it eases the FCS system into it. You'll notice in this replay, I do not do a good job of that, and we get wobbly once we get up to the 60 degrees vertical that we want. So anyway, coming in, 2 miles mark, 1.5. 5 will call for smoke on. We'll call contact. Keep that smoke on. Burners ready. You can hear them come on there. Ready, hit it. We're pulling into the vertical, looking for 60 degrees. And 60, I overshot, so a little bit of forward pressure to keep that. And then at the altitude that number 5 determines, which is usually about 4,500 feet, so it should begin pretty soon, we're going to begin an easy left-hand roll to inverted, and then we're going to perform a split S and come back towards center point and cross center point. So we're going to roll slow, and number 5 will give us the speed of his roll in the cadence of his radio call. So the way that Chariot likes to do it is he'll say roll, which kind of gives you the 3 segments of the roll, if you will. That way we know about when we're supposed to be wings level. And then we'll pull kind of an easy pull. It's not all the way to the stop, so you're not yanking this thing. And we're just going to arc it very gracefully. We're trying to be graceful here, over the top, and perform that split S to come back toward show center. So here we go, roll and pull, easy pull. And number 5 will be calling his degrees of nose angle so that way we're timing that at the same time as well. 30, 25, 20, 15, horizon. Now he will also call his altitude so we know what our altitude is relative to each other. I believe on this pass he called 7.8. You can see I'm a little low, 7.6. And then right around now, once we get pointed toward the ground, I'm looking over my head and I'm looking to see if I can find number 5 in the sky. And we can see here he is right here. And then I will call contact, and I'm listening for his radio call when he will call contact so he can see me as well. And the sight picture you want is you want the other solo pilot, the lead solo in this case, right on the horizon line, because that means you're at the same altitude. You can see here that I am a little bit below number 5. He's a little bit above the horizon here. So that means I know that I'm a little low, which checks out because I was about 200 to 300 feet below him when he called his horizon altitude. So this is probably fine. And I would call what I think my offset is from him. So I would call, in this case, probably 500 feet low just to give a little bit of room. So that way he knows that I know that we're a little bit off. And it also helps him to interpret the sight picture he's getting. Usually at that point, Chariot will give a sugar call, which tells me whether he thinks we're going to be good. So he'll say, looking good, or something like that, which means that we don't need to do some wild adjustment to fix an altitude offset, even if there's an offset. If there is a big offset and he's making some adjustment, he might call burners, like burners in, like he's on the burners, or he's on the brakes if he's low, or something like that, because it's his job to make that horizontal hit on time, and it's our job to make sure that it's on the right vertical offset. But even though he's the one who's setting up that horizontal hit, I'm head out of the cockpit for the rest of this maneuver. I'm not looking at my gauges. And so there is a little bit of responsibility on me as I'm coming towards center point to make sure that that hit is right over center point as well, because I'm flying visually here. I'm not flying profile. I'm just watching number 5 all the way into center point from this point forward. We are typically also aiming for about 100 to 150 feet to level out before we cross each other at center point. But I'm just looking to make sure that the vertical distance is the right distance it needs to be to make the hit look good. So I'm not even paying attention to numbers for that altitude. I'm just flying number 5 all the way in. And then once we hit center point, we will perform a right aileron roll or aileron roll away from one another, and then we'll clear behind the crowd. So let's check out the rest of this. So we're watching number 5, watching him coming in. We can see there's a little angle. We're adjusting that. He's also adjusting his, and we're just pulling him into the HUD. And now we're looking to set up that vertical angle. I can see I'm low, so I'm going to adjust a little high here. Try and stay above him. And then ready, hit it, roll, wings level, clear, and then clear behind the crowd. Pull. These are fun. And then we'll away from crowd heading, rolling out, pull to 10 degrees nose high, and then come left for the next maneuver. And that right there is how we fly the opposing vertical pitch. And like with a lot of the opposed maneuvers that we've done up to this point, once you get the basic profile down with your beam setups and how to make sure that your vertical and horizontal spacing is good, a lot of these maneuvers come together pretty quickly. This one's actually not too hard to do. It's just a basic kind of split ass. The devil, of course, is always in the details of making sure you guys are at the same altitudes, same airspeeds, you guys aren't really off from one another. And that will come with time and practice, and you'll have to learn to coordinate that. But you will learn it with practice, and it actually becomes a very graceful maneuver. It looks awesome. It looks really great from the crowd line because it all happens right in front of them, and there's some really cool dramatic crosses. And the clear behind crowd is always awesome. And so this is a really great maneuver that's pretty low intensity for the pilot. And looks good. So as always, get in the jet, get those reps in, and nail it. Demo. Okay, let's check out an example of the vertical pitch from that Coballetti show we've been using in previous videos. Focus on how I'm trying to stay locked into Chariot's calls throughout the maneuver, how I make adjustments for when he loses sight of me, and see if you can find a little mistake I make somewhere.
Left vertical pitch.
Lebs in left vertical pitch. 3 miles, mark 400. Two miles, mark 400.
Smoke on.
Contact.
Connect. Add it up. Ready, hit it. 60. Stand by, roll, and pull. Power's idle. 45, 40, 35, 30. Horizon. Now 80.
80.
Bringing in a little more. Pull.
Contact a little high.
Blind.
Altitude. Altitude.
1.5 mark. 1 mile mark.
1 mile.
Half mile mark. A little pull. Ready, hit it.
Roll right. Roll right.
Clear.
Turns clear. Stand by, roll, and pull. 334. Stand by, roll. Trace clear, and clearing behind the crowd for the inverted tuck over roll. State 6-0.
State 6-3.
Contact.
And that's how the Legacy Blue Solos perform the opposing vertical pitch. If you enjoyed this video, consider hitting that like button and subscribing to our channel, where you can find the rest of the Legacy Blue Solos tutorial series, as well as full side-by-side show sequences and debriefs. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the flight line.